From the Buddha's teaching point of view, we're all human beings, including insects. It says it have the potential for enlightenment. There's without any kind of discrimination, everybody can become Buddha. It is a right of existence. Just so it's now. So now this teaching or this idea need to boil down to our potential. When you say like, okay, I as an individual, what? My body, my feeling, my consciousness, my awareness. So potential, concept of a potential to become enlightened, I think is need to boil down to this consciousness, mind. Okay, so mind. So basically, how we related with our own mind. So I think this is a fundamental question. Do we relate it with our own mind? How we relate with our gadgets, things, or how we related with our own consciousness, our mind. We barely think. We kind of take it granted, our mind, just okay. So now, Buddha's teaching point of view, the preciousness is our human mind. Preciousness of our sentient beings is the sentient being's mind. So mind is a really mind. We barely really treat badly our mind. Maybe we can say that we really, which is really the ultimate source of enlightenment, all the potential, but we so disregard it, barely acknowledge our mind. We barely acknowledge our mind. And that's, I think, the sad part, barely. Okay. But how we treat our mind and how we treat our brain, maybe we might treat more brain much more precious than our mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think when we're trying to do meditation, I think before all the whatever the guideline or anything, I think we have to establish fundamental relation with our own mind. Meditation was done by mind. Meditation may be done a little bit by brain. I don't know, but meditation is done by mind. So we have to have some kind of, from the spiritual point of view, from just exercise point of view, maybe it's okay. We can treat it as a very external. From the spiritual meditation as a spiritual point of view, fundamental step number one is how we relate it with even the mindfulness meditation. How we relate it with our own mind. Is very mechanism, or very like a tool, or we treat as a mind as just kind of like a tool, or mind as a treat as something slightly different. So here, when Buddha says we all have a potential to become enlightenment, and that potential is not another than our own mind. Okay, so here we should be so, how you say, feel bad maybe. I never treat my mind respectfully. I never even acknowledge my mind. Okay, so here this is okay. So here I think as a meditation, as a spiritual practice, step number one is how we treat, how we acknowledge our own mind and feelings. And maybe in our back of our minds, well, my mind is crappy, my feeling is very crappy all the time. So I have nothing good story, good relation with my mind. Okay, I have no good relationship with my own mind, and So here, yes, that's really true. My feeling, my thoughts, my mind, there's nothing positive thing. So how I can feel something positive? So here, so maybe that is the mind is like when you get, like, how you say, when you get some kind of injured, then your body, what, white blood cell or red blood cell, something's trying to fight it, trying to get attention, trying to get. So maybe we as a human being, that not good feeling towards our thoughts and emotions is maybe our Buddha nature is crying. Our Buddha nature is making some noise. Okay? So that's maybe another way to look at it, you know, like, so my key point over here is when you do a meditation, step number one, meditation as a spiritual practice, how we relate with our own mind. Okay, so that's the key point that I'm trying to communicate. Okay, how we understood our own mind, how we acknowledge our own mind. Okay. So now, as I mentioned earlier, you know, my mind have a nothing good story to tell, my feeling have a nothing good story to tell, but here we are just looking into the surface. Maybe itself have a lot of spiritual message, or maybe it is the noise of our own Buddha nature. You know, it is crying for transformation. Maybe we didn't hear that cry of a Buddha nature, that noise of a Buddha nature. Okay, so so meditation as a spiritual practice, not only we should how to acknowledge our mind and our feelings and thoughts, but also how those individual feelings and thoughts, those specific feelings and thoughts, how we relate it. Okay, we have a very strong thinking, this is negative, these things I don't want, I want these things. I don't want anger, I want compassion. I don't want ignorant, I want wisdom. Can I get this from Amazon, delivered to my house? You know, so we treat, you know, okay, so basically I think that the challenge or the habit is so duality. We have seen this very materialistic, very duality, very external, very conventional, you know, something that I want, I don't want, this is good, this is bad, and there's so things separated. So my point over here, like for example, when you're talking about the enlightenment, potential for enlightenment, maybe this is a really big picture. Let's go to the potential for compassion, loving kindness. Okay, potential for loving kindness. Immediately we got, oh, I'm all the time angry, I'm all the time prostrated. Where is my potential of a compassion? Okay, so from the I think there's no two different seeds of frustration and anger, and the seeds of a compassion. If there's two different seeds that we can have, then pretty much we can order in Amazon. Deliver. I need the seeds of compassion. So now in a reality, that seeds of a frustration, that seeds of a, you know, disappointment, that seeds of a dissatisfaction is nothing other than seeds of compassion and patience. Okay. So therefore, we all the time trying to see, you know, look some way other, you know, trying to find something enlightenment and awakening some way other, which doesn't exist. What it exists is within the ignorance, within the frustration, within the anger, the seeds of compassion, seeds of patience. So if we look from that perspective, we have a really different way of looking into those specific feelings and thoughts and mind as a general. We have a different way to look at it, isn't it? We really, you know, right now the problem is we have such a duality approach The approach entirely is a duality. Approach is already the system of interaction, the system of communication, system of anything is a very kind of like a separation, you know, this and that. So yes, that creates such a duality experience. But we as an individual person, when you say spiritual practice, you know, that's spiritual, that's spirit. That spirit is nothing kind of deep down. There's, you know, something that's, you know, that consciousness or that. There's nothing. It is very all-pervasive for negative feeling, for positive feeling, and for everything. You know, so I think meditation as not just as an exercise, and meditation as a spiritual practice, then step number one, acknowledging of our mind and not seeing duality between compassion and anger. Maybe that's really, I think, okay, so this makes sense? Does it make sense, what I'm saying?
So when you say non-duality between compassion and anger, are you encouraging us to sort of understand the mind's basic nature of purity and that, you know, to come back to that rather than to get lost in the anger?
You know, basically, duality in terms of over here, you know, it's kind of like a two different track. Anger is a one track, and compassion is another different track. It's not necessarily seen as a two different track. It looks like really two different track. It sounds really two different track. And when you look at in the instructions, particularly meditation and compassion, sounds like, oh, you're trying to have its own kits, how to build a compassion, all that things. So now over here, with the individual, basically when I say non-duality over here, is basically there's no two different seeds of compassion and seeds of that's its own self is the so in another way to look at it, let me make one story or example. When I was in Maitripa College, there's one, you know, one of my teacher and he had another student, one young monk. And he is known for so rebelled. Nobody can subdue him. He's known for that. He's like, and they have no idea. And somehow, within the several months, he transformed from this very untamed, like a rebel, to the best student, from totally opposite side. You know, so here, I think there's no two different that individual, but that one individual went through two different stages. One individual went through healing process, and when came that. So maybe when we say compassion is maybe seen as such a thing, it is a kind of healed process. When it's the frustration and anger in healed, and they're transformed back to compassion. It's nothing you separately constructing and building and generating compassion. Yes.
I think this is my interpretation of what we talk about duality. It's like anger, happiness, compassion. They are just like part of our lives, part of us. So it's like one thought you could have the Buddha nature. One thought you could be you could have the most devious thought. So I think the matter is like how do you control it? Back to what you said earlier. Is it true?
No, I think I'm thinking like our habit. We have so much habit and culture of seeing everything as a separate. Okay, duality. Everything is like, this is a compassion, this is a anger, this is like so separating. The language, the way we communicate, so separating. That's kind of culture and separation we build. Okay, it was almost we are treating very external kind of thing. Okay, now I want to build compassion. I want to demolish the anger. And I don't know where I'm going to throw the leftover the anger. We're treating almost like very kind of external way. So my point over here is maybe that this such a label we call anger and compassion. This all are our journey or transformation. There's a state of a mind and our feeling is frustrated and then transform into compassion. So it is just one mental continuum, one flow, not two different flows. We are not trying to create one new flow of a compassion. It's just the same flow, that frustrated mind and that kind of things. So another way to look at it, like for example, we say like anger and jealousy and frustration, and we have all these different emotions. Okay, and again, our habit. It is maybe in reality, these all are just manifestation of ego. Ego is flashing different pictures. Maybe it's just there's no different, independent department of anger and department of running by his own self. It's just kind of like a manifestation of ego. Just ego is kind of like with a certain condition it manifests that way, and certain condition is manifest that way. But we label all those different things. It's just like the wave in the ocean. It's just kind of like a different waves comes from the different conditions. It's just we are giving too much, like for example, we are giving too much detailed attention to the different waves, different times of the wave. And we are not really kind of like, almost we are trying to cut through the saw, the wave in the ocean. And maybe I don't know how to cut or rainbow or whatever. There's no way to do it. But way we treat our thoughts and emotions are like so not seeing. So there's all these dual projections of those different afflictions. So we're not seeing as a one kind of like a manifestation or projections of maybe is fundamental that ego. Okay.
Mind, and I'm wondering about the emotions of anger and compassion. Are they? Maybe I have this idea of mind and what I've been taught, and I'm just wondering where those fit. If I'm trying to meditate and I'm using my mind, how do those fit in there? Because like flashes of things are there.
Yeah.
So
exactly. That's the point I was talking. Like, okay, how we'll wrap up all these things. Okay, when you're trying to do meditation. Okay, so the key point over here is like first thing, step number one, when you're doing meditation as a spiritual practice, then step number one, we need to kind of clear acknowledgement of the mind. So mind, something acknowledged in terms over here as not just as acknowledging as mind exists, that the mind is as a fundamental foundation, a fundamental nurturing, fundamental source of our meditation. Okay, something where we connecting. We are not running as a not so much when we're meditating, not so much as a very mechanics style. Okay, my mind's do this, do that, do that. It's not following kind of that things. Right now, we might have a similar treating like a mechanic kind of do this. Now press this button, go through this process. So basically, the fundamental philosophy of a meditation that contain arising through sense of a clear awareness of the mind, okay, basically what I'm trying to communicate over here is we as the individual person existing is not defined by just this manifestation. Something much more deeper, and that's kind of talking to the. Anyway, it's become a little bit complicated, but that's the step number. I'm coming back, same thing. So basically, gradually developing. Step number one, sense of acknowledgement of a mind, and sense of, even we can say respect. I think we can say a sense of respect towards our own mind. We are talking so often self-respect, and we are so loudly speaking of a self-respect, and really fundamentally, self-respect is not this conventional identity, much more in the ultimate way. Self-respect need to be respect to the awareness and consciousness and mind. Okay, so that's really the coming down. So, meditator, I think, having tremendous respect. Maybe we can use this word at this moment, but then in a second, that's the first step, number one, for the meditation as a spiritual journey. Now, second level is meditation as a spiritual practice. Then when it's a practice, then we have this whole challenge, this whole different things that I need to clean up. All these different messed thinking, and so this kind of like now the what correction we treat in that way. You know, okay, I need to clean up this. I need to be almost very external, very duality, very these things. So here, second thing is what I'm saying is meditation as a practice. Now over here, first thing is all these negative emotion and positive emotions are, you know, two sides of one coin. Basically, we are treating as a two coin. So basically, step number two, this entire as a, you know, one coin. You know, basically. Then basically, which coin is coming up or which coin is down, that's the whole different things. But basically, seeing as a two sides of one coin. So therefore, seeds of compassion is nothing different than seeds where the seeds of prostrations are happening.
So how do you retain the seeds of compassion when you feel the anger, seeds of anger coming up? I mean, like right now I'm dealing with a lot of anger about my own personal health and such, and it's hard for me to interrupt that. You know, like people say, just interrupt it, just think differently. It's not that easy. You know?
That's true, that's true.
I don't know if this is, this kind of relates, but I'm not sure. And thinking about this is that this is like this huge training in emptiness in a way, right? But it's like the pure aspect of the mind is a mind that's capable of enlightenment. We all have that. So even when, I don't know if this is helpful, but even when I'm feeling like I'm not making any progress, or that part of my ego that is self-identifying and concretizing the judgment, if I can train my mind to remember that my pure nature of mind is enlightenment, my pure nature of mind is that, that kind of moves me into that. Like, I may not be able to apply the practice and apply the antidotes or apply whatever that is, but just even for me to interrupt that concrete nature of the self that's relating to whatever it is, it's like my pure aspect of mind is enlightenment. Kind of gets me on that track. So that's just helpful for me as a practitioner or as a trainer. And also those two words for me, because I've been reading the discourses, the middle length discourses a bit, and the two words of practice and training. Like when the Buddha talks about train, that's train. It has a different feeling to me. Like training, it's like, whoa, it's like training. It's like training the mind rather than practicing. For me has more of a, I'm kind of more, I don't know, not applying myself as much, but training, I'm stepping in a little bit. So that's just for me. That's
Okay,
just a
good.
personal way.
Good point. So here, interruption. You know, now again, when mind is too frustrated, maybe get to distract, maybe interrupt or distract from that thoughts, and Is that really important? Yes, I think it's really important. You know, we need to get distracted. That we need to put down the fire. That's very important. Okay, so that is that interruption or distraction is part of the process. Is very important. You know, that's the, you know, like for example, breathing meditation. From the meditation instruction point of view, it is just interruption. Breathing meditation is just an interruption for distraction. You know, so you create, you know, for interrupt the distract, then slowly you can kind of awaken the concentration. You know, so now, so now of course, you know, we all like long-term cure, long-term healing, ultimate healing. You know, but such an ultimate healing is created through the step-by-step, such as a distracting. So we have to have a second plan. You know, distraction as a yes. Yeah. Now what's the next plan? How we're going to look at it. So this is a. So now here, as I'm telling over here, maybe how we relate with the anger. That's, I think, okay, I'm feeling anger, that's really true, but there is one additional nailing, we nail saying like, this is very bad, I want to get rid of. There's this another story wave we created. Maybe the steps, because now over here, it sees about compassion, self-compassion is maybe, if I say seeds of self-hatred, they may coming from one area. Yeah, so that will be like one of the areas that, you know, maybe more concentration, you know, like okay, so wish there's something different seeds. We like to, I think if there's a different seeds, that will be the best news. That was the quick way to enlightenment. But the challenge is the same place. They are all in the same. I think that's my point of view. Okay, this is not necessarily. That's the another way to look at it. From my point of view, I didn't have any specific resource saying that. Okay, here this Buddha Sutra saying here is a one seed. The way I understood all the teachings of the Buddha nature is basically seeing into the basically. It is a pointing into the same seeds. It's not two different seeds. It's only one coin, not two different coins. So, so now here, I think there's a, when we feel anger, and there's a, you know, another layer. And that's, I think, the very negative towards to the anger itself, basically. Very negative towards to the anger itself is maybe the main thing what really blocking, not able to heal. So over here, way to overcome very negative towards to the anger, way to overcome that is, I think, seeds of compassion is within the seeds of anger itself. So I think that's maybe, that's the, I think once we see, it's just here, is this, I cannot get another way to healing.
Maybe if it's all part of the mind and you respect the mind, like you started with talking about respecting the mind. Mm-hmm. So your anger, you can change the light or the flavor of your anger as respecting the mind. It's part of the mind. It's part of all the things that can encompass. And if you give that respect, then it lessens.
Mm-hmm. That's also true. So another way to look at it, you know, for example, mindfulness meditation is coming, they say, don't judge, not judging. So maybe I think there's an anger coming, the tremendous anger is experiencing, but the worst part, you know, the judgmental related with it, that anger is the most, maybe the obstacle, what is not able to heal. Okay, and okay, how we can overcome the judgmental towards to my own anger is, I think, ultimately seeing, if I want to have a self-compassion, the seeds of self-compassion is within the seeds of self-anger. So it's almost you're putting into the same place. You know, if I want to heal, I need to treat this slight different way. If you know, like almost like a, you know, if I want to have a happy friendship, I should need to communicate. I cannot create happy friendship without that communication. Okay, so I think it's lots of awareness. You know, so anyway, key point over here. So meditation over here. So how we see these two as a, so what I'm trying to draw is like, you know, there's like a trees of afflictions, and just kind of drawing down. Usually there's a picture, then you're drawing down, comes into the one seeds. Okay, so there's a millions leaves, thousands leaves, so like coming down into one seeds. So now what I'm trying to mainly communicate over here is when you meditate, you know, the strategy of a meditation is you are trying to tackle one by one those negative thoughts. Or this is like almost impossible. You know, if you're going to deal, my meditation practice is I'm going to like kind of like battling with those individual one by one, or should I trying to seek the cure from the seeds? You know, so that's the key point here. What's happening right now is we are stuck with the one individual leaves, and we are struggling with the one old individual leaf, and there's the rest of the 1,000 leaves are ready to take over, even you take out that leaf. So that's the how to look to as a meditator. Okay, how to look at it. Am I trying to dealing with individually, or am I look at into as a, like this kind of like a tree, and there's a root. You know, that's me as a meditator. Okay, there's so many things I cannot answer everything. Maybe I should go into the root and that communicate. So over here, so basically, so feeling as, so that picture we painted, so seeing as in the one root, really, I think that's the main, what I'm saying is all are in the same seeds. There's no two different seeds, separation, okay? Okay, so now, again, if we look at it like a if we plan, if there is something manual, okay, here's the meditation manual, how you're going to deal with the anger. Okay, from my point of view, step number one, of course, breathing meditation, get some distraction and get calmed down. You are in a good position. Then step number two, okay, now we have to look at this. I cannot treat this as a source, judgmental and this whole things. I need to develop something, you know, through the meditation, that kind of self-awareness, self-acknowledgement, developing that kind of mindfulness, okay? And then step number three, then I need to see this all as coming from one seeds, like the tree that we are trying to, you know, Tibetan medicine, they paint it like a tree and then it comes down. Okay, so that's the ways we are going to see that picture. Then that root of the tree over here, this case, we'll say like, okay, this is the ego, self-grasping. Okay, now what's basically happening over here is I can manage this entire different rivers of afflictions through adjusting the main dam, where is the water, source of water coming from. I'm not going to fix individual rivers. I can really manage, adjust where the source of a river, where is coming from. Okay, so now over here we're labeling this source of a river as a self-grasping, ignorance, and all the different terminology. Okay, However, in a deep down, basically, I think sense of self, whatever terminology we used, it's basically adjusting sense of self, can adjust all these different rivers of afflictions. We don't go to fix individual rivers. So maybe here, maybe these whole rivers are making different noise, because here in the source, there's a sense of self we are not really putting in the right position. It's the posture, that the posture is not so good, or the sense of self. That's maybe creating those different aches. So now here in the long-term meditator, okay, there's all these different noises are coming up. I'll step back and really readjust my sense of self. Okay, so what that means, a sense of self, maybe I need to kind of. There's a, like for example, when it's a self-anger or self-hatred, there's a lots of maybe we haven't treated well ourselves. So maybe there's this kind of acknowledgement, and this is where it's coming from. This is not individual entity. This is all coming from fundamentally. Maybe I need to readjust, reset sense of self. Maybe that will be cure rest of the river. Okay. So in such a case, so what that really means is over here. What happens? Like how we treat our own self, sense of self. We treat sense of self with a lot of demand, lots of expectations, lots of ideas. So here and standards are very high. Very difficult to graduate. Even you graduate, it brings different things. So standards are very demanding and high. So my main things over here is basically healthy sense of self, that basically acceptance of a self, wherever we are. Sense of accepting. So sense of that acceptance, how we build, isn't, again, there's no two different things. There's a tremendous demand, and there's a acceptance, how we're going to, kind of negotiate between these two. There's nothing negotiating. It's just being application of awareness as a step number one, step number two, applying the patient. And kind of, because right now we totally close that, we totally doesn't look at as that way. There's two different, we are looking here as an individual, there's one target, we're treating very externally, I need to get rid of this one. Okay, so I think it's coming back into, I think in the long term, the river of affliction, way to managing is the way to resetting sense of self. And sense of self, maybe we can go very deep as a meditation of emptiness, or sense of self is just basically kind of in philosophical terminology we call in basically self-sufficient substantially grasping of a self-sufficient substantially existence is kind of very heavy terminology, but this is what really kind of give us some kind of a caffeine. It comes somehow, it gives some kind of caffeine rush, and through that we have all these different projections and demand towards the self.
But if you don't have expectation and demand of yourself, and you just accept yourself as face value, then you don't have progress. Then
Yeah.
how do you strike the balance?
Exactly. Now this is the common,
What did she say?
if we don't have expectations and to make a progress and change that kind of expectation, then how, just accept, and then how you make it, it's almost like it sounds like very passive. Okay, same thing like when you say practice patient, everybody feels this is really passive. Practice patient is very passive. So it have a very passive flavor, but the passive flavor comes from, not because it own self as a passive, but we are sugar rushed. So that makes it very passive. Okay, just to get somewhere, another to look at it, that situation. So now over here, how is striking the balance? That's the key point over here. Okay, right now at the beginning, way of striking the balance is reducing all these affliction demands. Okay, that's the step number one. Okay, way to strike balance. And then once we're able to calm down that part of the noise, okay, then there is all the actions, all the engagement. It basically, if you look at it really put together, right now all the actions are coming from this reaction. This kind of very engaging, proactive comes from the reaction. So the strategy or the plan, can we have a very proactive through compassion rather than reaction? So that's really the key point. Is not trying to drop, suddenly you kind of like, suddenly you are like no energy. You're bringing the source of energy from renewable energy, not the fossil, what you call it, So basically what we are changing over here is source of energy. Where we're going to bring, we are habit to bring the source of energy from reaction. Because that's easy and cheap. That's very cheap. Sugar and very cheap. And okay, so here basically we can be really proactive, but the source of energy. So that's really the plan. That's really what all these green energy, green policy. And same thing in a spiritual journey. It's just like, can we have something very healthy, but still we can generate all this energy. It's not trying to go like an Amish style, like suddenly you don't use any kind of electricity and anything. But yes, is there an alternative? Can we be proactive through alternative approach? Okay, so that's the whole meditation, that's the whole practice. Looking for alternative source of energy of a proactive. Is not so okay. So you're going to say something, sorry.
Well, I think I'm understanding what you're saying. I guess the way I was trying to think about it was the expectations for most of us, at least for me, is counterproductive, that I can't jump over myself to be the Buddha. I can't say, oh, you're from now, I want to be the Buddha. And when Pema Chodron or so many other people say we must give up hope, what she means is the paradox of change is that until we can give up any expectations that change evades us, until I can see anger as a part of my path to compassion instead of trying to rid myself of anger, I'll be continually plagued with anger. That I have to see the anger as grist, it's food or grist for the mill. It's something I need to work through to get to the place of compassion. So it's necessary, like I need other sentient beings to test me, to help me be a better person. Without other sentient beings, I'd be...
Yes, exactly. So, yes, absolutely. So here, when we say drop hope, the hope that we are orientated, hope that based on a reaction, that's definitely we need to drop. But through that, so anyway, so my key point over here, okay, so it's coming down to the sense of self. So we labeled, different label. It have a self-grasping, ignorance, so on and so forth. So now I think the key point here comes is the ignorant and the wisdom. Again, how we treat, how we see like ignorance and the wisdom is again two different seeds, or ignorance and wisdom. Maybe seeds of wisdom exist within the ignorance. Okay, so now we're kind of like to look at it. Maybe this tree of afflictions, and it have all different branches. Maybe that tree is also not another than the wisdom tree of a wisdom. There's no two different tree of afflictions, and there's his own roots and is all this kind of different, and wisdom as a two different tree. Maybe now we need to look, maybe we as an individual practitioner, meditation into the emptiness of a self, this is a very important part. So here maybe we need to see as a step number one, maybe we need to see as a one tree. There's no two different tree, ignorant tree and the wisdom tree. Maybe there's a one only tree. Okay, in such a case now, like when you meditate in the wisdom, maybe how from the Buddha's teaching, wisdom is maybe defined through stage of ignorance which is healed. It's maybe it have a sometime word when you eliminate ignorant. It have this word eliminated. I think instead of eliminated, maybe can you say ignorant heal in English language? Mm-hmm. Heal the ignorant. Yeah. You can say that. Okay. So. So this is quite often happens. Like for example, meditation of emptiness, dependent origination. This reflections becomes a very important part. But even in India, early philosophical systems, they say, okay, things really, truly exist. And they say, why? They're dependent origination. Mm-hmm. They put that exactly logic why they are independent and truly exist. Now when the Nagarjunas and those great scholars, they say, well, things that doesn't truly exist. And they say, why? Because they are dependent origination. So they comes to the same source, same witness, trying to prove two different things. So that's another way to look at it when you're looking in the wisdom process and ignorant process. So basically what I'm telling over here, right now I make as a philosophical, historical, how they worked. Maybe within our own self, subconsciously, this kind of a permanent feeling, false sense of permanent, false sense of securing all that things, is maybe in the deep down there, maybe is because I need to function, I need to live, there's some kind of dependent originations. So that's so-called ignorance. We call so-called, in the philosophical terminology, ignorance. So meditation in the emptiness, maybe we need to tackle that same place, same area, same going, well, it is a not permanent. That sense of security is false because it is a dependent origination. It is a functional. It needs to be engaging. Okay, so so anyway, key point over here is so what I'm trying to communicate over here is we as a meditator, meditation as not just as an exercise, meditation as a spiritual journey, then developing sense of respect towards to the mind or consciousness, and not only that, then is coming through all these kind of like a negative and a positive, destructive emotion and the healthy emotion. all this we need to have some way to almost creating equal. If I respect positive as a healthy emotion, then I need to respect destructive emotion. Okay, it sounds a little bit strange, but that's right now we kind of have a very judgmental towards to those thoughts. And this is a good and this is a bad. Then we can, this is why not? Some these are harming for me, and some these will be helping me. So therefore, why not? I can judge this way. Well, there is definitely those negative minds can harm and positive minds can help, but to transform, to heal this mind, if you stuck into this box, it is not going to help me. That's the key point. Meditation playing important role over here. Yes, there is this box, conventional box, this harming, this helping, but there is more than that. That's just conventional box. There's more than that to go much more deeper. Okay, so the key point over here is trying to, as a meditation, as a practice, then we need to practice over this kind of overcoming very dualistic, very kind of like a separate approach. We need to kind of like calm down and basically seeing all these things are manifestation of the mind. Like this whole are a different wave. This all are different wave. So now over here, and so then, okay, I cannot create ocean without wave. Wave is part of ocean.
Or rainbow require rain.
Nothing. So now the key point over here, through the meditation, what we are really trying to doing over here, are we trying to create without no wave, or basically meditation over here is what we're trying to get. Meditation. When you're meditating, we are not trying to stop the swimming. Meditation is basically this wave of emotion happening, but when we are not able to meditate, when we not meditate, our muscles are cranked. Our muscles are like in the ocean when you're swimming, when you're seeing waves and you're scared and you are kind of, I say muscles, cramping or tense. So when you're trying to do meditation, it's basically you are still in the ocean, you are still in the water, but you are able to relax, and maybe you're able to enjoy. So here, meditation is, right now with no way I can enjoy, like I'm so scared, but you can enjoy. There's possibility to enjoy. Once you relax, once you loosen up this tightness within the self, and maybe that ultimate enjoyment, maybe we label enlightenment. Ultimate way of enjoying the samsara is maybe the enlightenment. There's no totally separate picture that we painted in enlightenment. Enlightenment is that somehow those professional surfers, which they are not fear with those giant waves, and they're able to enjoy and celebrate. So maybe the problem, this whole journey is that maybe we are so scared with those individuals' different waves. And really the meditation practice is basically not trying to correcting the waves and not trying to direct the waves wherever you want, but whatever comes up and able to ride that ultimate ride. Maybe meditator is just kind of surfer. Maybe we're just trying to maybe, one time I was in Santa Barbara in California, and in the morning, I take a walk, and I I consider these morning yogis and yoginis, they all have their surfing boards and they all go morning practice commitment. They go through all morning commitment and they stay there in the ocean, they wait for wave, and their commitment maybe for, I don't know, 1 hour or 2 hours, and they all come back like, then go to school. But it's like, so daily meditation practice is maybe we should treat as a like, okay, here I'm going to take a surf lesson, surfing lessons to able to stand and not get sink into the afflictions. So basically, right now, the most problem is constantly we get sink, and then we're not able to get oxygen to breathe, and that we get panic attack, all that whole things, okay? So meditation is basically trying to, not to emptying the ocean, meditation is to ride the ocean of afflictions, oceans of affliction, take the ride of the ocean of the afflictions, okay? So how we treat, I think that fundamentally, that's how. And then I think now again, where is this coming from entire? Okay, maybe when we say sense of self and all that thing is, these are really somehow. When we say self-grasping or whatever we use this terminology, it's pretty much self-control. This is just basically, we are control freak. Control and control and control and control. That's the fundamental somehow. Why we do that? We don't know why we do that. We do that. Control. Control the past, control the future, control the present. And I think this control, this controlled mood, maybe one of the meditation purpose of meditation, maybe we should, maybe we should have some gadgets that can, or you have your control pulse is like 1,500, some way to measuring these control things. Okay, so what I'm saying is that when you say in a self-grasping and this kind of self, is basically is talking about the concept of a control. With a self, there's a lot of control. This self related with the self, we have this habit of a control. How we could control. Okay.
When we say I should do this, I should do that.
Yeah, then they have all these different pictures and different way of expressing I should do that, I should be this way, I should. There's a lot of another way to look at it, we say with the expectation early time we're saying. Now this is really the dilemma part as a way as a human being existence. So control. This, I think, the control is an action, and we have a feedback sense of self based on that action. Somehow, if I can control this. Somehow, the feedback sense of self. Okay, so here I think the complex and the dilemma comes from somehow sense of self. Culturally, or I don't know, habitually, we developed based on a control. So that's I think here. So one of the Buddha's teaching of Parajana Paramita Sutra in the second turning wheel of a Dharma is basically here saying, okay, sense of self is not necessarily that feedback have to happen through controlling. Okay, and lots of I think second turning wheel of a Dharma teaching is trying to showing that false sense of self that we are making through habit of a control, that control, this control, through the control, then you kind of building sense of self. So Prajnaparamita Sutra is basically, that's the illusion, that's the delusion, there's no such a, that's, and what is the suggestion? You can criticize something, but what is the suggestion? Prajnaparamita Sutra, sense of self get through dependent origination. Okay, that's the maybe the what is. But again, when you look at it a little bit carefully, and I think this is a big dilemma. I think sense of self, how we develop in a journey, all the wisdom meditation is a way to develop healthy sense of self. So I think sense of self, when you look at in the general, in the culture shapes, your peers shapes, there's so many different layers. It kind of like a shapes sense of self, and maybe in the Buddha's teaching, ultimately Buddha's teaching is what is really is teaching for me. All sentient beings should develop healthy sense of self. That is the essential teaching of a Buddha. And once we able to this kind of like a healthy sense of a self, okay, maybe that's the one of the important teaching. Through this, compassion naturally arises. Concentration and respect and all these positive things can arise naturally. Once we have a sense of control and fear, definitely we will not try to naturally respect, because there's a kind of like a sense of control and fear. Okay. So maybe Buddha's main teaching is okay, if Buddha's main teaching is a healthy sense of self, then why Buddha said there's no self? No self, there's no self. Selflessness. One time I was kind of just thinking, it just came in my mind, Buddha, he's grown up into a very Hindu tradition, with there's beliefs, there's kind of a permanent self and kind of that things. And then he, kind of very, explored and independent thinker. So he kind of get out from that culture. And then he also kind of well-known individual person into the community. And he kind of went, maybe identity crisis, maybe just kind of visualizing. Now, like, maybe people might also, the surrounding community may also ask, now who are you? Are you Hindu or are you what? Maybe there's who am I? And then maybe then. So anyway, concept of a no self, selflessness, meditation. So no self and self, this kind of very negative negation approach is, basically, ultimately, we should not misunderstood. This can be misunderstood a lot. No self, concept of no self, and all that is a misunderstood possibility. So over here, I think also like this is a very, I don't know, when you look in the translation, no self, selflessness, whatever we translate, I'm not sure it is a effective translation. It's a because Tibetan language and maybe Sanskrit too, in lots of Eastern language, the language are kind of lots of space. The terminology have a lot of space. I have one friend, Chinese Taiwanese business person, and sometimes she says she make a business deal, and when she make a final business deal, then she's trying to speak in English, not speaking in Chinese. She said, she told me, she don't try to speak in the Chinese because when you speak in that, they can interpret it in a different way. So she speaks in English. So it is just, to make a truly existence. All the contracts and everything to make a truly existence. There's no space of interpretation, and thus everything's get very clear.
Yeah, which we call concretize. It's like concrete is very solid.
Exactly.
And we do that with our thought.
Okay.
Whether it's identity or view or belief, we concretize. This is the way it is.
Exactly. So anyway, so no self is also kind of like a terminology. It's very kind of no self. It's very negation, very negative, or very nihilistic, or such a word as selflessness maybe doesn't really. Selflessness maybe talks like, oh, maybe it's a compassionate. It's not talking. It's meant to kind of descriptions of wisdom and understanding of the nature of existence. Okay.
What do you mean space in the language? Spaciousness in the language.
Yeah. I mean, like it have a space to interpret it. The language itself, by nature, doesn't really carry kind of concrete flavor. Okay.
You can interpret it differently.
Yeah, in Tibetan, Dagmepa, we'll say Dagmepa, it doesn't really, not necessarily sounds as a very nihilistic. Okay, so the language have a, by language, generally, yes can be mean no, no can be yes. Language by itself is have a kind of, yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, what the time is it?
It's 12:24.
12:24.
12:24.
Exactly.
Okay. My key point over here, fundamentally, this concept of a Buddha nature, we're saying we all have a Buddha nature. I think it's a very pleasant word, very nice word. I think most time maybe we misunderstood. We liked it as a Buddhist, yeah. And when it's come down to more practical introducing what is a Buddha nature, maybe sometime we might get disappointed. Like for example, when you say Buddha nature, it is nothing different than ultimate nature of mind itself. If we don't go there at the beginning, Buddha nature sounds like there's kind of shiny within something tangible within our own self. And we all have a Buddha nature, but it is not tangible. It is just kind of reality of the existence of my mind or self. And then maybe one get thought, this looks like more philosophical. It doesn't look like practical. Now how we translate that reality of myself into this appreciative mode, Buddha nature, joyful, how we translate it. If we just leave it into this kind of very kind of like a excited mode, we are misunderstanding. When you're trying to correct, we lose that excitement. Now, a very important part is this is something good translation from this philosophical understanding of a Buddha nature and to that individual appreciating the Buddha nature. So that's the whole my point of talking earlier, the respect for the mind, respect for the affliction, respect for the, as coming down to this Buddha nature is basically seeing wisdom and ignorance are standing into one seed, not in two different seeds, but the nurturing condition, there's two different things. In same seed, you put this condition, it shows different reflection. In same seed, when you put this condition, it shows different way. Okay? So basically, you have a, field of vegetables. There's a two choice. You can do very pesticide, those all garbage, or you can do organically. But you're in the same field. In the same field. Okay, so so like tomatoes in here, like I went to in Switzerland. Although in Switzerland there's one shop, the grocery shop, they have this, it's not organic part, but their not organic part is in America can be organic. There's a non-organic tomato, still like really good. Their standards are very high when they say like even just like regular. I think there in Switzerland, all the vegetables are coming from Spain, and if they want to do business with the Switzerland, they have their standards. What they can do, standards are very high. So their non-organic tomatoes are still really good. So anyway, okay, so that's my key point. Somehow, we need to. So now maybe I'll talk a little bit about meditation, like meditation, a little bit. What you think, when you're trying to do meditation and when you're trying to do meditation, basically look at like this. Like here your mind is so, how you say, loud. It's basically very noisy, and the mind is only kind of addicted for that kind of only noise. Okay? And because of that, it is missing many different subtle, beautiful nature sound. Many beautiful things is missing because it's just kind of like it's just habit and attracted for this. Like a television commercial. When the commercial comes, it naturally becomes loud. So now over here, when you're trying to do meditation, I think fundamentally what you're trying to do is trying to overcome this attraction for this loud noise. Really trying to listen the voice that you haven't hear, but there's a so beautiful voice. Sound that you haven't hear, trying to listen for those sounds. And meditation is basically, when we say sometimes calm down, but it's not necessarily calm down, you're trying to listen much more deeper, listen much more clearly. It's not saying like, okay, now you stop listening. No, you should listen. You listen. You not just listen for loud music. He's saying, listen for this subtle. So meditation, we need to treat meditation as like a deep listening. Just deep listening. The sound that all the time around you, but you never heard. And meditation is fundamentally, we need to treat it. Sometimes breathing meditation, we get like distracted, trying to count the breathing, and again, you're trying to create spiritual loud music, So there's basically, you drop the non-spiritual loud music to bringing spiritual loud music, and you get distracted again. Okay, so meditation is still okay, good. Spiritual loud music is still good, but this is not the point. The meditation is trying to get the mind to not to stop the listening, but to listening to that beautiful voice that exists all the time next to you, and you're never hearing, and trying to listen. And okay, so meditation is all about subtle listening. When you're starting to meditating, when you're trying to, don't try to bring spiritual music, spiritual top 10 music, and then you take down another top 10 music, what you call the Billboard top 10 music, throw out, and spiritual top 10 music you bring, and you're playing those music. And then the same thing again, you may fall in the same thing. Still a little bit good, but but again, I think the key point over here to okay. So meditation is just basically trying to to awakening that subtle awareness. Ultimately, meditation is to awakening this subtle awareness, subtle mindfulness, subtle concentration, subtle wisdom. In terms over here, subtle as in not talking about the tantric concept of a subtle, I think within this grosser state of mind, you know, it's almost like we are all the time in like kind of like, if there is a dial tune for our mind, is we are all the time in the 10. So meditation is basically turning the dial down a little bit another way. That's as simple as it is. Let's look at it that way. And that space and that peaceful and that, I think through that, that's the way to nurture the seeds of compassion. And that's the way to heal the seeds of affliction. That tuning down, because that top 10 music Billboard chart is constantly feeding. So our method is just basically not trying to boycott the thoughts, nothing, but just basically trying to listening for subtle, listening for classical music. Okay, so that's, I think, yes, it sounds easy. There's lots of challenges. Yes, it constantly pulls you back to that music, spiritual music. Yes, but that's the journey in the meditation practice. It's simple. It's just kind of, and I think that is the you know, sometimes in the teachings, teaching in the Buddha nature, they say like, okay, here the water is so kind of like a straw and dark. Just leave it still. Don't stir more further. It's come down, it's settled, then it shows its own purity. In the same way as a meditation, as a, you know, don't try to put flour and bring more incense. You know, one time His Holiness came to one place, and he have one room they created. I forgot to go into that room, but the person who was in charge in that room, and she's so spiritual, she puts incense and flower and everything, and that room have no window. When His Holiness came, it was full of smoke. He said, oh, it's just too much smoke. I mean, well intended, but, you know, again, these things can happen in our meditation. Suddenly, there's too much smoke and too much incense and everything, and then suddenly your meditator cannot breathe. Okay, so my point over here is non-complicating our meditation. Because sometimes, okay, what I should do now, what I do something difficult that I cannot do, nobody can do. You know, so meditation is just relax and enjoy the natural music, sounds of music. Sounds of Music. That's a beautiful movie. I really liked it, that Sounds of Music. Okay. So I think let's make it simple as that. You know, sometimes we complicate then bringing all this spiritual top 10 music into the meditation, and different gets complicated. Okay. Okay, so let's stop here and have really lunch.
Do a brief dedication prayer on page 30 of the Blue Book. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, so you're all welcome to stay for the potluck, and then we'll have an afternoon session at some point.
Early time, I have so much hesitation putting my teachings into the YouTube. You know, it's also a very strange phenomenon. listening, teaching in the YouTube, and I mean, like, it is a very, very easy and a practical. I mean, like, today's world. It's interesting, you know, like. I mean, like, anything is easy, cheap, have a result also easy and cheap, you know. So, you know, sometimes, you know, like oral transmissions and different things, maybe online. Yeah, maybe online, maybe not. No, I don't know, through online oral transmission. Oral transmission is like warm heart to warm heart. You just kind of like really have to be that. And usually in a you know, initiations doesn't happen. So I got initiation. I got initiated online. You cannot, you know. It's really, you know, like this doesn't happen. Usually doesn't happen. And sometime, I think last time in the Kala Chakra initiation, when he's always giving the Bodh Gaya, and then he said, okay, you know, there's because of the Communist Chinese stopped lots of people. You want to come? You know, today I will give you permit to receive Kala Chakra initiation online, so they can receive online Kala Chakra initiations. But anyway, okay. Anyway, and I think, you know, suppose one time I was looking in YouTube, and somehow I found one of my friend Rinpoche. He's in the YouTube. He's giving lots of. But one thing's noticeable. He have really fancy throne, like, you know, background. Really, I said, oh, I should get this. No, anyway, kind of like get distracted. You get like lots of interesting background. And then, you know, like I was usually I got a little bit uncomfortable to. Now, these days I was okay. I don't know how that happened. I'm fine. Okay. Okay, anyway. So now, one thing I think we are talking about meditation this early session. You know, I think meditation is a very, you know, I think it's a very necessary in our human life once we have a mind, this crazy mind. So in the Buddha's teaching, they're called teaching of impermanent. Okay, so now I think one thing what we are really missing as part of the meditation is the meditation of impermanent. I think if we integrated meditation of impermanent, lots of meditation becomes so easy. It is a less challenge. And a view of impermanent, approach for life, approach to existence. So it's not necessarily cushion meditation as impermanent. It's not so much. It's just approach to your own existence as impermanent. It's not so much about sitting down and okay, now everything's going to, nothing is forever. I'm not thinking about that. Just to approach for life as impermanent makes lots of our difficulty leaves that we are painting this morning will be much more subdued. So like for example, you know, so if we ask one question for meditation, what are the key ingredients we needed? Meditation cushion, there's not so much important. The key ingredients is approach to life of impermanent. If we don't have that, rest of the meditation will become very struggling. Very struggling. You know, it's just like you're fighting inch by inch, you know, whatever. So I think this teaching, so what will be the example for that? Approach for life as impermanent. Like make an example when you are in an airport what you feel after you've passed the TS checking. That is like the pardo, intermediate stage. You're going through all the different karmas, and then just visualize you're in the terminal with you are able to survive whatever you have. Okay, in these kind of like when you are going pilgrimage, when you're traveling. Lots of these unnecessary, usual kind of daily dose of afflictions are kind of disrupted just by being into the terminal. Just being as a mode of a traveler. So it's just there is a sense of kind of journey as in the present. You're not ignoring what you have to do in front of you. You're fully present, but there's a sense of kind of lightness. You won't fight if you want to pick a fight on the terminal. If there's something happening, you're really trying to. There's a lot of, because of that mode of self is a journey. The mode of self as a not kind of like a holding the ground. Okay, so. This is a really, really important, I think, when you're doing meditation. One of the ingredients is we can sit down and breathing and all that technique we can apply, but this approach for existence of impermanent, this mode, if we lose, then every moment will be difficult. So impermanent meditation somehow becomes a key ingredient for our meditation. Key ingredients for meditation. So like what that means is basically in meditation, maybe in the approach of life, and also this impermanent approach for life is a foundation and source of appreciation for our life, I think. Yes, I think we are not able to appreciate our life because, when we're traveling, sometimes, don't you, we go to pilgrimage or traveling, there's a sense of appreciation, there's a sense of enjoying. You enjoy that journey. And why I don't enjoy when I'm in my own residential area, I'm enjoying on the terminal. Why? It doesn't make a sense. But only I can also able to enjoy in my residential area if I change the approach. One ingredient that I can bring into my residential area, that approach of a sense of kind of impermanent. There's one ingredient if we can bring back, we can also appreciate it, our own space, our own existence, our own all that engagement and so on and so forth. So basically, impermanent approach for life somehow is like key ingredients. So basically daily basis, that kind of like, or same like this morning I was telling you, do we ever acknowledge our mind? We talked about this morning. The same way, do we ever acknowledge impermanent of my existence, of a nature, of all phenomena? Did I ever acknowledge, notice? We haven't really. This all kind of slipped. And then we're trying to develop here meditation and concentration and all that things. We're losing the key factors. Okay, so we can have everything. We can have the best everything, and still can be really unhappy. Why? We can have everything and then we can be still unhappy. Even you achieved everything, but still there's a hole inside yourself. What is my purpose? Or you may accomplish everybody think you should be happy. You accomplish everything. You did everything, and but still there's a hole empty. You start getting, really? Am I supposed to be happy? Yes, you're supposed to be happy because you complete this, you accomplish this, you accomplish that. Yes, I accomplished, but I accomplished with the grasping and permanent. Anyway, we are saying that kind. I think I think joyful life and happy life and appreciating life, I think it requires view of a flow of self. Basically, when I say flow of self means yeah. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying right now. And also, when we say joy, also there must be some misunderstanding in a joy of life. Must have some misunderstanding. The joy we understood, joy under the culture of joy that we understood, and joy of life, and we have misunderstanding, and so therefore even sometimes we say, oh, you know, I'm not getting joy. Even I'm fully present moment, I'm not getting joy. Where is the joy? There's a misunderstanding of joy. So now the fundamental over here is again same thing. You know, for example, Buddha, you know, he saw this aging and death and these things, and really, you know, he have everything, but he said those conditions, you know, sometimes I'm wondering, only the Buddha got so spiritually moved after seeing aging and death. Is there anybody have some kind of awakening after Buddha by seeing aging and death? Any history there is anything, you know? So I think these are really, I think these are like we are not pay attention, you know. For example, aging, and I mean, like, also when I say I'm not pay attention, means basically this nature of a reality, part of our existence. You know, they become suffering because once we're trying to control. You know, death becomes suffering when we're trying to control. You know, like all this. But anyway, my key point over here is, you know, spiritual journey is supposed to, you know, like, how looks like, I mean, what's the feeling the spiritual journey looks like? Just let me put it this way. It is a basically, spiritual journey is a basically let me use word this deep awareness. Okay, that's kind of like a vague word. Basically, deep reflection of your own journey of life. Spiritual journey is a deep reflection of your own journey of life. Journey of life. Just spiritual journey is a deep listening for journey of life. You know, basically, you know, we have a basic things. Okay, you get job, you get house, you get retirement, and there's this kind of like basic fundamental things. But then we as an individual person, do we go a little bit more deeper to look at it? Okay, what is beneath these whole steps? Or is there any more further deeper than that? I think spiritual is a deeper way of reflecting into individual's journey of life. That's the spiritual journey, I think, you know. So therefore, like for example, the death, you know, death is one of kind of, you know, any time we can be die or dead. But anyway, this is not so much about the challenging for attachment for this life, but I think basically puts you into different way of living when you have that reflection. Different way to, the spiritual journey is what is a spiritual journey? Spiritual journey means the journey that you're taking in your life is not just this material, these basic things, Spiritual journey means you want to go much more further than that. That's really the spiritual journey, okay? So, So more than that. Okay, let me put it this way. Spiritual journey is basically the vision of life, your mission of your life, a vision of your life, whatever we're going to call. It is a really, when you look at it yourself, you can be inspired, basically. Spiritual journey is a mission, vision or mission, what you call mission of your life. When it's mission of your life is so much limited, it becomes unspiritual. When the mission of your life is really vast and unlimited. Okay, that sounds good, but what that really means, you can say that, what that really means. My mission of my life is quite clear. Okay, do this, do that, okay, then I'm retire. The spiritual journey doesn't really negate what we have to do in our life. Spiritual journey really encourage what you're doing in your life. Yes, get professional, get your productive, your time, and that's yes, everything yes. The spiritual journey is adding something into that journey. And that mission, then maybe we'll call the mission, and that mission is to accomplish something? No. Spiritual journey means that usually mission have some kind of goal-oriented. Okay, maybe spiritual journey, when you say mission related, talking with the spiritual journey, maybe it's not goal-oriented. It's not something that you want accomplished. That mission is maybe just a way to develop the deep container, whatever you are carrying on, whatever you are going on, whatever you're trying to accomplishing. That the mission is the mission as a container, what you're going to carry through. The mission as not as like something to goal oriented and trying to accomplish. Maybe spiritual journey is something like that. Spiritual journey is how you develop the spiritual journey is maybe that container. You're supposed to be happy, you complete everything, but still there's a hole. And why? And from the Dharma point of view, because of it didn't carry on to that container, spiritual container. Because of that hole is coming. And what is it, that spiritual container? And how we develop that spiritual container? All that question comes. I think the step number one is reflection, approach for life as impermanent. So I think where we start that spiritual, and that will be the first. This hungry, all the time hungry, looking for something. And everybody say you're not supposed to be thirsty. You're supposed to be totally hydrated. But you're still dehydrated. Everybody's saying you should be totally hydrated. Full of water, and you feel still thirsty. So here I think from Buddha's teaching about impermanent. From that point of view, they say this is the basically that whole will be full of joy and appreciation once we have approach for life as impermanent. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge, and that's required discipline. That requires like maybe 6 times a day. Okay, I'm not here forever. I was in Malaysia, and there's a Buddhist center, and next to the Buddhist center there's a Muslims mosque. They, 6 times a day, 5 times a day, I think. Every morning, the prayer starts, prayer starts, and there was, the meaning is much more about the faith, reminding the faith 5 times a day, reminding the faith 5 times a day. I think as a Buddhist practitioner, I think morning one meditation practice, evening one meditation practice, I think not sure will be good enough. And our meditation practice sessions don't have to be too complicated, having the water bowl and the cushion and nobody runs around here, everybody should be still, and I think it should not be that complicated. If we make it so complicated, then it becomes, every session becomes, please nobody make noise, and all that complication things. So I mean, like each day, like 1 second and 2 seconds, or 1 minute or 2 minutes, maybe try for 3 weeks. Every day, 2 minutes, maybe 5 times, reflecting. Okay, so I think it gives this reflection of impermanence somehow naturally nurtures that kind of, earlier I was talking meditation. Meditation is all about deep listening. It is not about something not listening. It is a meditation. It's all about just kind of trying to listening sound that you never heard before, the music that you never heard before, but it was playing there all the time. There's beautiful music was playing there, but you never pay attention. So this reflection of impermanence somehow grounds our. So this one kind of very, very strange. Okay, I keep thinking of 5 times a day. Impermanent awareness I'm trying to bring in, and somehow feedback, there's lots of things kind of naturally settles. Lots of things this naturally settles. So we need to check that. Okay, so just try. Let's just try. Just make a research by your own self. And we'll, next time say, Rinpoche, that's absolutely not working. Okay. So that's kind of, I'll highly encourage this. Because sometimes we get so much sucked into the technique and what to do and what next to do, and kind of becomes kind of like IKEA's menu. So I think it's simplifying our meditation, and one key ingredient is just approach for life as a way when I say approach, basically way of identifying the life, the view of impermanent from that window. From that window, if you're able to see the self and the life, I think that can make a meditation much more easier, not too complicated. Then all this concept of Shine and Hartong, sometimes it makes us so far. But I think, once we put the right condition around, I think it's, I don't know. When I was 13 years old, I already thinking about enlightenment. One time, there's one tree, I was like 12. No, I was not 12. I was just like maybe 8 years old, and there's one tree, because we hear the story, Buddha got enlightened. I was in the Kopan monastery, and then I was thinking about the tree and trying to sit down, and I said, oh, maybe I'll get enlightened. But anyway. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of my thinking. You just see how it works. Okay, that's pretty much is it. I have nothing left now. Perfect. Okay.